Hello, and welcome to Your Inner Journey Weather Forecast, in which we utilize archetypal astrology to understand the energies in the collective and how we might navigate them in our psychedelic journeys this week, in our spiritual practice this week, navigate them to their best possible manifestation. So this week, we have a couple of very empowering transits. This is Archetypal Explorer here. So this week, August 15th to August 21st, we've got around mid-late week, Mercury conjunct Mars and Sun opposite Jupiter. So these are briefer transits that can be very uplifting and can encourage assertiveness, particularly assertiveness of communication, of speaking our mind. This, though, is on the backdrop of a larger transit, which you can see down here. It looks like it's not a very big deal. It's a Saturn-Pluto conjunction, but it's actually quite a big deal. This was the conjunction that was really active in 2020. And because of retrograde motion, because of Saturn going to retrograde, it is reactivated now. Good news is that the reactivation of the Saturn-Pluto is a brief reactivation, because Saturn goes retrograde, just touches on the Saturn-Pluto conjunction again, and much of September is when it really is tight, or when it's really active. And then October, November, it moves forward, it moves away. So basically, Saturn-Pluto in 2020 was the energy of feeling sense of confinement, the sense of the boundaries kind of closing in around us. It can reflect a kind of a fear response in people, the sense of the heavy weightiness of mortality becoming intensified, our awareness of it around us becoming intensified, the sense of projecting outwards our own fears onto situations or other people, a sense of feeling that there's a kind of a heaviness, a heavy energy in the air, a heavy energy of a stark energy, a tragic energy. And the flip side of it is that Saturn, Pluto together are also the most strongest combination for reflecting the deep strengths of humanity. You know, on September 11th, we had a Saturn, Pluto alignment, 2001 at that time. And the falling of the two towers was a very Saturn-Pluto phenomenon, because the structures, which is represented by Saturn, were like annihilated and razed in this Plutonic. Pluto's associated with death, rebirth, kind of the powerful, evolutionary, transformative, destructive, and thus creative energies of life, life's ability to both devour itself, destroy itself, and rebirth it from itself. And in September 11th, you know, it was a very kind of almost like literal example of the structures of Saturn experiencing that Plutonic fire and destruction and just getting raised. And so, and also similarly, the Saturn-Pluto energy of fear that went around that, of calamity, mortality, death, also the sense of othering, the sense that at that time, what happened was there was a lot of sort of projecting of the negativity and the fear onto someone outside. You know, the war on terror, you know, like terror is like something that we feel inside. So if you have the war on terror, you know, and you're engaging in a war outside, there's a confusion there, because actually it's kind of very poetically clear that you're actually on war against yourself, and you're projecting your own terror outside. The kind of invasion of Afghanistan, of Iraq, and then, right, so at that time, there was this sense of kind of outward action that was engaged in as a sort of like a retribution of fear, of pain, of hurt, of destruction that happened on US soil. Similarly, there was a real othering in terms of, you know, who could travel, who could board planes, you know, how people dress, how people are looked at, you know, became objects of fear, of terrorism. This is very common during Saturn-Pluto times, the sense of othering. And so now we are seeing it again, sense of fear projected outwards. And so, you know, we can see it in different ways, like Asian hate or Or for instance, like, the vaxxed versus the unvaxxed, everybody's projecting onto the other people. And then countries are closing their borders to other countries. So this alignment, the Saturn retrograding coming back into the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that was very active in 2020, is just been kind of creeping up over the past, basically 2 months. And now it's getting as tight as it's going to get. And in September, we'll get as tight as it's going to get, which is not very tight. It's not a very exact alignment. You can see on this graph, something's got to be up at the top of the graph to be an exact alignment. This alignment is much down here. So it's 15-degree orb. So it's not that tight. It's 15 degrees away, but it's tight enough to be active. So that's why there's this kind of like a wave of familiar kind of sensation impressions from 2020. Okay, Delta variant, everybody's got to wear the mask again. Countries are closing borders again. People are getting sick again. There's this fear of mortality again. It's a heavy atmosphere in the air. People are dying. I know of a person who died recently of COVID. And so it's a return to this energy, which, it really sits on us in September, and then it dissipates, over October, November, December. By December, it should be really out of alignment. I mean, it should be out of orb, so no longer active. And all of this is to say that usually with a transit, the last pass of the transit is the last chance for us to integrate the positive sides of the transit. And like I said, Saturn-Pluto can reflect the humans drawing out from the depths of themselves the most positive, noble side of their character in the face of challenge. The September 11th example would be that the towers are falling, but even though the towers are unstable and looking like they're going to fall, these firemen, fire people, rescue people, a lot of them charged in there anyways to save who they could save. And if they couldn't save them then they perished too along with them, that was something that they accepted along with their job. So it was this steely determination. It was this sense of duty, like depth of duty that transcends even their own mortality. The sense of calling upon the depth, inner authority within oneself to actually race into a burning tower for the sake of others, even though if there's a high percentage that you might not believe in yourself. So those energies on the air, there's the last pass for this time around of Saturn-Pluto over the next coming, 2 months or so. And it's a chance for us to really make, transits are an opportunity. They're an opportunity to learn the lesson, to manifest, to be the manifestation of these archetypes in their highest resonance, in their most noble form. And so it's a time for us to dig deep into our maturity and tap into it and make the most out of this transit in our psychedelic journeys. That can be, facing in the journeys like the reality of mortality, the reality of mortality and tragedy, that's an aspect of existence. And what does that call forth in you? What type of maturity and inner mastery does that call forth in you? What type of duty does that allow you to step into? And so that's where we're at. That's where we're at this week. That's where we're at as we're going into the coming weeks. That's the larger outer planet transit. When we talk about the inner planets, we've got some assistance here. We've got some positive, more short-term transits just this week, which is Mercury conjunct Mars and Sun opposite Jupiter. So Sun opposite Jupiter in our psychedelic journeys, it can be a sense of hope. It can be the sun, the sense of identity, Jupiter, the sense of upliftment, the sense of success, upliftment, kind of a buoyancy, optimism. We can tap into that, we can tap into that. And I think I'm tapping into it a little bit right now by describing the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in positive terms, the positive potential there of humanity to reach into the depths of itself and come up with some nobility. Mercury conjunct Mars, that can be very empowering. We want to watch out for it though. In psychedelic journeys, we want to let energies out that are pent up and let them out verbally. It could be like yelling or, like admitting that we're angry at somebody or something like that. Because if we try to stuff down any kind of energy that is ours to assert, but we're holding it within, during a Mercury conjunct Mars transit, it might just come out anyways. and it could cause damage. Declaration of war or something with a friend, something that is just, there's too much pressure built up behind the message. So we want to titrate it. That's what psychedelic journeys are good for. Spiritual practices, primal screaming, whatever it is, something that allows you to vent this energy, like allows your vocal cords and your expression or your writing or your communication, these are mercurial things, to be a vent for this assertive energy, this kind of power of message that you have, and let it come out, so it doesn't just come out unexpectedly in an interaction and end up kind of being a cause of kind of like confrontation or battle or something like that between you and somebody else. So these are our transits for this week. Let's use archetypal mindfulness. Let's be aware of them so that when they show up, when the energies show up, we say, okay, yeah, James talked about that. I recognize, I see it. So that when it shows up, we can allow it. We just see, okay, where do you want me to go? Where do you want to take me? I see you, you're here. It's assertive communication. Sun, Jupiter, optimism, upliftment, a sense of positive lift. Saturn, Pluto, a sense of the gravity of life, tragedy, the heaviness of mortality. Okay, I see you. I see all of these players, these archetypal players. Now let me just be with you in my presence in the present moment and see where you want to take me. How do you want to manifest? How do you want the carpet of my life to unfold before me? And I follow it in that way. And that way tends to allow the archetypes to manifest, and they tend to be happier, more well-behaved, in a more productive form. If we are not going against them or being unconscious to them, we're just being aware. We're being aware, archetypal mindfulness. Oh, I see through my life events, these are specific events, but underlying, I can see that they're actually vehicles for the archetypes to be expressed. And I recognize them, I see them. Let's see where they want to take me. I'm just going to be open and be receptive. Excellent. So I wish you a wonderful week. I wish you a wonderful practice of archetypal mindfulness, and we shall see you next week.